Okay, finally today, one last topic in our first lecture in ATS 113 is about the origin of the Earth's atmosphere. Why do we have an atmosphere at all? Where did all this atmosphere come from? Well, it turns out the atmosphere that's around us right now is what we call Earth's second atmosphere. When Earth first formed 4 billion years ago out of a planetary nebula, or whatever the right word is from astronomy or whatever, a atmosphere formed with the Earth. As the different particles of dust and such that coalesced together to make the Earth form, there was also gases. Those gases were largely hydrogen and helium. Did you notice when we did our list of gases in the Earth's atmosphere, hydrogen and helium weren't in there? There's a reason for that. We lost those gases. Those gases are very light, and those gases, the molecules of them move very fast. Air molecules, as we're going to learn in this class, are actually moving very fast. The nitrogen molecules, the oxygen molecules, the water vapor molecules in the Earth's atmosphere are bouncing around in the Earth's atmosphere at about 1,000 miles per hour. But hydrogen and helium molecules on the Earth move even faster. In fact, they move fast enough that some of the molecules are actually of hydrogen and helium are actually moving faster than the escape velocity of the Earth. If you put an atmosphere on the Earth made of hydrogen and helium, some fraction of those molecules get away every day out into space just because they're moving faster than a rocket. They're moving faster than the escape velocity of the Earth. Those molecules leave the Earth's atmosphere and go off into interplanetary space, and they don't come back. So that first atmosphere that formed with the Earth like 4 billion years ago was lost over a course of a few 100 million years. All those hydrogen and helium molecules bled off into the interplanetary space, because sooner or later every molecule had a period of time where it was moving faster than the escape velocity of the Earth and headed off into interplanetary space. Our second atmosphere on the Earth, which is the one we're currently breathing now, primarily comes from a process we call volcanic outgassing. When you picture a volcano, I know you're thinking of like explosions of lava and stuff like that, but that stuff's all bubbling out of there because of the gases that are escaping too. That process of gases that escape from volcanoes and also from like earthquake faults and things like that, seafloor spreading events and things like that, the gases that escape from there are what makes up our current atmosphere. Like, that is where nitrogen in particular, but also carbon dioxide, to a lesser extent water, most of the gases that are in the current atmosphere, the second atmosphere of the Earth, came from volcanic outgassing. Before we go farther than that though, I want to make something clear, because I know from other semesters sometimes there's confusion about this. I'm not trying to say that like the Earth is hollow and full of air. These gases that bubble out of, at like at a volcano are in the magma, in the same sort of way that like the bubbles are in the Pepsi before you open the bottle. Okay, they bubble out of the magma in the same way that the bubbles of carbon dioxide come out of the Pepsi once you open it up. Okay, I don't want you to get the sense that there's like big trapped pockets of air inside of the Earth or something like that. No, it's dissolved into the lava and the magma. You notice though on this list of gases that come from the list of gases that came from volcanic outgassing, one was missing, and that was clearly oxygen. Oxygen cannot come from volcanic outgassing. That is not a source of oxygen. Rather, oxygen only comes from photosynthesis. So life had to evolve on Earth before there would be any oxygen. In fact, it had to be plant life, which had chloroplasts, or I don't know, whatever you learned in high school biology as to how photosynthesis works. It wasn't until that happened that we started having oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. Interestingly, oxygen was originally just a waste product of plants, and in fact it was very toxic stuff. The cells that were evolved at that time, because they had evolved in a planet that didn't have oxygen, didn't need to be evolved to protect themselves from oxygen. Oxygen is actually surprisingly toxic stuff. It tends to damage cell walls and stuff like that. Now, a few odd 100 million years later, we find ourselves, all of our plants and animals and bodies and all this evolved to protect our cells from oxygen. In fact, not merely survive in an oxygen environment, but requires an oxygen environment. But that was not the case at first. In fact, it was one of the first great hurdles life on Earth had to overcome, was learning to live in an atmosphere full of oxygen, because it was originally toxic for the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, so now that gets us to the end of the first lecture. Now, the way this is going to work is I have some questions for you, and we're going to kind of do this like an interactive sort of way. I'll give you the question here, and if you scroll down a little bit in blue line, you're able to answer the question, and then depending on whether you got it right or you're wrong, you'll see a different video we'll move through. I think I have about 4 questions to ask you. All right, first thing I want to ask about is which of these processes here is a source of water vapor in the atmosphere? Is it the evaporation of raindrops? Is it the formation of a cloud? Is it the formation of dew on a grassy surface? Or is it the melting of snow? So think about those processes. Which one of them would be adding water vapor to the Earth's atmosphere? And make your choice and move on, and we'll see what happens.